Hey
And
guys,
welcome everyone.
welcome,
Hey
welcome, welcome.
Susie, it is the SomEThing
Hi.
podcast. This is a big one. It's a big one, Susie. You ready?
I'm I'm really nervous.
Okay. There's
I feel
reason to
like
be
we have
nervous.
so many people on. Yeah,
There are a ton of people behind stage right now. We've got
yeah,
a big show. We're going to be talking about Lamina1 coming to Linea very soon with a big debut. We've got the co-founders. You may have heard of them. A guy by the name of Neil Stevenson, famed legendary sci-fi author. We got the folks from Weta Workshop. We got Rebecca Barkin, the co-founder, as well, and our own Joe Lubin going to be joining the conversation. That's all going to be coming up in just a couple of minutes. And we're going to get Susie a little bit of Xanax to calm down. Maybe it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
I always get
Um,
hyped when the song comes on. Do 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 do. When the song comes on, I always get like hyped, and now I'm like extra hyped. So, let's do it.
all right. All right, we're going to do a really quick speed run of what's been going on around Linea so we can get to our guests. But we had some really big news this week that we don't want to give short shrift, and that is that SharpLink Gaming is deploying $200 million of ETH. They've committed to deploy it on consensus. Consensus is Linea, that is us. SharpLink will leverage EtherFi staking and eigenlayer restaking to capture native Ethereum yield, restaking rewards from those EigenCloud AVSs, and all within Linea's compliant layer 2 infrastructure, and all with the secure bankruptcy remote custody of Anchorage Digital Bank, which is the first and only federally chartered crypto bank. And what's exciting most of all is that this is really just the beginning. It's the beginning for Linea and for more between Linea, SharpLink, and Consensus all working together. Now, on the technical side of things for Linea, we've also just speed run literally years worth of Ethereum upgrades in recent weeks. We're now on beta v4.0. We've absorbed Cancun, Prague, and almost all of Petra, proving that it is possible to be both ZK and nimble with those upgrades. And one final teaser before I'll hand it over to you to go over some of our new dApps, Susie, and that's that Linea Exponent is coming, which you may not have heard of. But what this is the program for builders that we've mentioned in the past few weeks. It has a name, it's Linea Exponent, and it's coming. It's how you get directly rewarded for building and scaling on Linea. So again, the name is Exponent, and it launches next week, which is when we'll have more of the details. Over to you, Susie. A couple of new dApps we've got this week
New
on Linea,
dApps.
right?
New dApps, everybody. The first one that we had newly deployed is a dApp called SurfLayer. SurfLayer is a next-gen, high-performance, cross-chain bridge, enabling lightning-fast, secure, and zero-cost transfers across 30 networks, including Linea. We also had Auto Finance. Auto Finance does auto pools, and they aggregate blue chip DeFi protocols, and they optimally and autonomously rebalance between a lot of different destinations. So it only takes a single USDC deposit to harness DeFi yield. It's pretty amazing. The last one we had this week was Allbridge. Allbridge Core is a cross-chain bridging solution, and it's specifically designed for stable coin transfers. So it allows seamless movements of USDC and USDT across major blockchains, including Linea. And those were our new dApps this week. Oh, and one more thing. We have an event coming. Do you see this? Builder Hour. This will happen at DevCon. It's hosted by Linea. If you're interested, please sign up using the Luma consensus page, which is just Luma/consensus. And those are our updates for the week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susie. Tons going on. And as if that weren't enough, we've got another big thing happening on Linea this week. I think it's probably time to bring out the guests and let them walk us through it, right? Who do we got?
I think we got Will first. So Will is the CTO of Lamina1, and he's going to come on first. Hey, Will.
Hey
Welcome.
guys, thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for spending your time here.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick introduction to the Lamina1 platform, and then I think I'm going to get followed up here by Rebecca to give a little bit more depth to it. I'm going to try to share screen, so bear with me for just a moment.
And you're specifically sharing Spaces, correct? Which is a new offering of Lamina1.
Exactly, yeah. So Lamina1 in general was built around a pretty simple idea. So give creators true digital sovereignty. So in Web 2, creators have traditionally built on we refer to as rented land. So their audience, their data, and even their business sits really behind someone else's platform. And so they're generally creating content for like an opaque algorithm rather than for their fans directly. And so Lamina1 flips that. Here the creators own their content, their community, and the economics that they generate. The primary way that we facilitate that within our platform is this new product that we call Spaces. And a space is a dedicated environment or space specifically for your IP or your creations, whatever they may be. And this is just launching here tomorrow. Artifact is going to be the first space that we launch with. This is Neal Stephenson's new IP. And within a space, you can do 100 different things. On day one, a lot of the functionality that you'll see is going to be about facilitating a completely sovereign and creator-owned transmedia content feed. And what we mean by that is like unlike Instagram, where the majority of content is maybe photo or video focused, or Spotify, where the majority of content is audio focused, here we can support a wide variety of media and content types, whether it's images, whether it's videos, whatever type that you as a creator create, we can host it here. The platform is owned and managed by you, and it puts you directly in touch with your fan base and your audience. So there's a couple different ways we facilitate that. We'll have integrated questing frameworks. We have co-creation opportunities. So for example, as Neal builds out this IP world, there'll be ways for the community not just to be passive consumers of the IP, but to actively co-create or remix the content and participate in the unraveling narrative framework that Neal's building. And then of course, this isn't limited to just Neal. We plan to have a number of different partners emerging over the next few months that are going to be releasing spaces, co-creating with their fan base, monetizing their emerging IPs, and really setting up a model for like a next generation of content production and distribution and monetization.
Well said. Eric, any questions?
So tell me, what the timeline is for when we might see some of these things rolling out.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, tomorrow is going to be the first launch of a space, and that'll be this Artifact space. So you guys are actually seeing it ahead of everyone else. But yeah, tomorrow will be the first space. It'll be Artifact. Like I said, the first couple days are going to be really about facilitating this transmedia content feed. But coming up soon, there's going to be a couple. I'm not going to give anything away. There's going to be some events unfolding. There's some hints in you can see about when that might occur. And then later on in the year, potentially into the first quarter of next year is when you'll start seeing quite a few new partners launching their own spaces. And so right now these spaces are invite only while we sort of build out the product, test it with creators, see what works for engaging with the fans, really what clicks, and we build out some of the functionality. And then we plan to open this up to the public early next year.
So cool.
Super exciting.
Yeah, I like that it's all in one. I think this is like something we've been looking for, which is instead of having to go all different platforms.
Yeah, as an independent creator right now, I mean, if you want to launch a new IP or anything really, it takes a lot of community management. You have to, have a Twitter account, you have to have a Patreon, you have to have a YouTube, so it's really trying to unify all of that together. And when you do that, in the traditional Web 2 world, your community is fragmented, right? You don't have a single way to reach all of your community. You really have to manage across all these different channels. And so Spaces really unifies all that. And then it also has a number of cool frameworks built in, like a reputation system, the ability to launch tokens. So different ways that you can incentivize your community to co-create and engage with you that you really don't see in a lot of the traditional Web 2 frameworks that are out there.
Amazing. And what better way to launch it than to have such like a high quality production come in the form of Artifact?
Yeah, definitely. We're really excited.
It's gonna be a huge explosion. It's gonna show everyone how well it works and how it can like truly function for creators. So cool. Thank you, Will, so much for the demo.
Yeah,
We're
of
gonna get
course.
into Artifact now. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Will.
Okay, let's bring on the crew, baby. Let's do it. I feel like I should give like a New Heights if you watch that podcast, like an intro. Where I scream everybody's name. You know, welcome Rebecca Markin, Neil Stevenson.
Need some walk-on music.
Yeah,
Oh.
the Weta team, Joseph Lubin. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Such a crew. We thought all of you were essential in this conversation because of all the different ways that you've contributed. So, Rebecca, if it's okay with you, we'd love to start by asking you kind of like how this all came to be. I mean, you were with us a few weeks back. You gave us a sneak peek about Lamina1. We're so excited to have you on Linea. So can you just give everyone a refresher of the big picture and how Artifact came to be?
Yeah, of course. So happy to be here. We'll keep the focus on Artifact for sure, which is this kind of new original IP that we have developed by Neil and Weta Workshop, and also the Lamina1 team, which starts to roll out tomorrow, as we've said. But a bit of context is, you know, Artifact was developed with this concept of like participatory world building in mind, and frankly has been a really fun challenge and kind of a force of focus for the platform itself, because in crafting a story for both consumption and frequent kind of interaction with the content, we had to build a viable framework to house and share projects, and then also kind of provide the tools for players to then have a part in that development and the ownership and the expansion of that IP over time. And we loved this idea of a content platform that kind of gave creators and storytellers agency and real ownership and better economics, and seemed increasingly over time that like the right infrastructure for that was a decentralized one, especially considering kind of what was happening in 2010, 2020. Was this like we were seeing corporations financing and mining creative projects, but with very misaligned incentives and a very different understanding of like what a successful outcome is for a piece of creative work. Like you want the loyalty and the spend of an IP franchise community, but very little patience for sort of how you create that kind of stickiness and longstanding community buy-in. So Neil and I had worked together at Magic Leap. And then Neil gave me a ring back in 2022 while I was still at MSG Sphere. And kind of said like, look, I think that this platform is now possible basically. And that missing piece for granting agency and ownership and that kind of new economic structure with meaningful scale was blockchain. And so it was a very steep learning curve. And we saw a lot of folks chase the IP idea in 23, 24 with a lot more money at times. But we knew that we had sort of the authenticity and kind of the deep entertainment like business understanding to be able to really break through. So, you know, we kind of kept our heads down and we built what is now the Lamina1 platform and spaces to hold a project like Artifact. And that will evolve with integrations from the Linea ecosystem and kind of our new token utility to help solve problems across financing and distribution and fandom. But I think we always knew we had an edge given Neil's IP and this kind of wildly imaginative, also very timely idea. But we didn't want to be cheap ever and taking advantage of that. And so we started with kind of just a seed from Neil. And it was this concept of I'm going back pretty far here, but like of art. And,
That's okay.
And the backdrop to that kind of ideation, that little seed, was the acceleration of AI and this kind of intensifying battle for resources among AI giants and how that would eventually be, potentially at odds with humanity. So you're kind of like looking to strike this balance, providing this narrative scaffolding and these compelling mechanics, but you want to stop short of dictating any kind of final outcome. And then, of course, we called our friends. So, we have a very long history of working with Weta. So we called Sir Richard Taylor and Greg, and we asked if Weta, being the legends that they are, would want to try this experiment with us, and they were game. So we spent time establishing this like very agile creative development process that would ultimately be able to deliver an IP that kind of transcends one format or another and pulls fans into the actual crafting of this world and sets the stakes and gives them kind of a central role. So that experience actually starts with the user kind of receiving this mysterious message in the form of an artifact. And it's years after this like traumatic event called the spike. And I think on that note, Neil, you should probably dive in to the spike. What is the spike?
Happy to, yeah. Yeah, this all came out of a thing that happened in, I think, April. So in the spring of this year or the fall of this year, if you're in New Zealand. I got invited to go to Wellington to give a talk there about AI as part of a kind of program that was going on. And I just started thinking about the funny state of mind that people are in around AI. It's obviously become a very big topic. It's consuming enormous amounts of capital and other, sort of intellectual resources at the moment, getting a lot of attention. A lot of people are using it, but a lot of people at the same time are really afraid of it. And so, I'd had conversations with people who were running big AI companies who, on the one hand, they're running a company that's doing this, and on the other hand, they were feeling pessimistic about where it was all going to go. So the scenario that I kind of laid out in my talk in New Zealand, which was sort of half serious and half more of a satirical idea, is basically, look, if we're going to take at face value the idea that these big AIs might somehow be dangerous to us, then shouldn't we make them compete for resources just like everything else in the world? Why should we be sort of raising them in these hermetically sealed, protected environments and hand feeding them all the resources they need? Seems like they should have to, compete just like any other organism. But if we believe the claims being made by AI advocates, these things are going to be so smart and so fast that we will be too dumb and slow to compete with them. So the only solution is to get them competing with each other. And maybe we could do that by sort of getting them to believe that other AIs are actually their opponents or their competition. So that was just sort of a half tongue-in-cheek thing that I said at this talk. But Greg Broadmoor was in the audience, and I don't know, one thing kind of led to another, and a few weeks and months down the road, I started to think, maybe that's actually the basis for kind of a new story world, a new IP universe. And, what if we take that idea and extrapolate it forward? What if we did get the big AIs to compete with each other? And what if they tried to do the singularity that everyone keeps talking about, but it fizzled? It never went anywhere, because as soon as they started to sort of exponentially grow in power and resource consumption, all of the other AIs came in and started trying to fight with them. So in the story world of Artifact, that event is called the Spike, and it's a thing that happens in our pretty near future. It happens very quickly. It's over very quickly, but the result is a complete restructuring of society and a reduction in the human population. And so we kind of rejoined the story a couple of generations later, when the dominant sort of forces on the earth are the 12 so-called bigs, which are the big AIs They're situated physically in different parts of the world, different continents, and they're all kind of competing with one another for the key resources that they need in order to keep thinking, right? So they need electrical power, they need copper to carry the electrical power, they need water to cool off their systems, and they need GPUs, the special chips that clankers use to think. You know, kind of an interesting side note to that is that GPUs have a couple of other uses, and one is mining cryptocurrency, and another is drawing pictures. So these are categories of chips that can be used in these very different applications, but the clankers, the bigs, want them to keep thinking. So humans are living in the interstices among all of these bigs, and some of them are kind of like the Amish. They've decided they don't want to have anything to do with technology, and so they actively shun the use of any kind of technology. But others have found ways to sort of coexist with the bigs and to make themselves useful to the bigs, and they are have been slowly in the background developing a kind of a decentralized version of what we've got today, which is a very highly centralized form of artificial intelligence. So the adventure that you're being invited to take part in the Artifact storyline is to be one of these people kind of spread out across the world in different kinds of communities, different kind of subcultures, who are kind of in a decentralized way working together to build a more humanistic kind of technological system, and gradually take back power from the dominant forces on the planet, which are the 12 bigs.
Wow. That was amazing. I have so many questions, but we don't have so much time. And I do want the Weta team. You guys have built, I mean, just listening to this, you can just imagine how big this world is and how big this idea is. But you guys have built big things before. Lord of the Rings, you've got those statues right behind you, right? You've worked on the new Dune movie, which was amazing. So you've done countless big things like this. So talk to us about how you translated Neil's world into this imagery, into this world building. How do you approach this kind of world building?
Well, I guess first it's important to kind of discuss what world building means to us, I suppose. Like for us, world building is about creating a visual foundation, a stylistic foundation. And the great thing from my perspective about Neil's work is that it leaves so much to the imagination. He isn't trying to tell us what it looks like, but he paints such a great picture of how it feels.
There's enough detail, but it's incredibly evocative in lots of space. And working with Neil is always like that. It's an exploration.
Yeah.
Neil's not the classic directorial type. He opens up a world, opens up these pages, and there's just so much room to explore. So it's great fun. And that's the most fun type of creativity we have. There's always, with every new project, some you have very prescriptive, we know exactly what we want, and others much more exploratory.
Yeah.
And luckily on this one, it's very exploratory. And we're finding out as we go, because I think that's because of the technology itself as well, the Lamina1 spaces and so on, that we don't even know exactly how it gets realized. We have to find our way along, as we go.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more exciting. It's very exploratory.
I think you're right. Like we have done a lot of really large scope projects. So scope doesn't really scare us so much. It actually kind of makes us excited because you can really have fun building that foundational map and really get into the details of what the different subcultures feel like, what the different bigs feel like, how all of these design elements work together to create an overall feel of the artifact world and something that feels like, because the foundation is so strong, all of the layers, the subsequent layers that we build on top of that in terms of visual details just create this sense of realism and a believable, relatable world.
That's a great feeling. That's why we do it too. It's like as we see the world emerge visually and it starts to make sense, and we go down these little paths, that whole feeling is just the feeling that is the most fun as you realize it. There are always lots of dead ends. You go down a little alleyway and see what's down there and go, maybe that's not it. This is what we do as a collective as well, as throw ideas to Neil and to the Lamina1 team and see which ones stick, which ones resonate with us, which ones resonate with the team. And then from that emerges this world. And then you feel like you live in it. That's where we end up as creatives at Weta Workshop. When we build any of these worlds, Lord of the Rings and so on, we feel like we're living in that world. That's what I love about it anyway. You come to work thinking I'm in a fantasy world. And by the way, if you were here, you would see that's what it's like around us. Richard and Tanya have created a space. If I look over there, there's elves and armor and orcs. And if you walk down the hallway, there are swords on the wall that you can pick off. And it's we surround ourselves with our imaginations all the time. It's great fun.
Do you have impromptu sword fights? Like, do you both take off?
I've had sword fights. When I first started here, I got
Why not?
I mean, true story. Neil is a sword fighter.
Yeah. I wouldn't challenge Neil to a sword fight.
I wouldn't challenge anyone to a sword fight.
We do have like some of the really, really early creative sort of brainstorming artwork too that Case pulled together that we can kind of float in the background, Greg or Rebecca, if you guys wanted to reference to it. But it's like some early stuff, some of the early iterations. Case, do you have some of those? We have like a secret screen sharer in the background.
While we're pulling those up, Neil, I'm curious. You're probably one of the few people who conceived of a new medium of storytelling within a legacy medium. In some of your early books, you conceived of some of these kind of interactive mediums for storytelling that we're now engaging in. So, but I'm curious, like with this narrative, what made you think that this narrative was better suited to this sort of interactive co-creation and world building versus print novel?
When in this line of work, there's different, when ideas come to you, each one kind of has its own flavor, its own individual character, and sometimes it's very story focused. It's like, oh, I've got an idea for a story about a person who does this and does that, and they have, the following kind of plot arc. And then maybe you build the world around that. You make a world that's in service to a particular character or a particular storyline. In other cases, sometimes it kind of goes the other direction, and it starts with an idea for a world, and then as the world kind of starts to cohere and make sense in one's mind, you start to think about, okay, who are some of the people who might populate this world, and what are some of the experiences they might have. And so in the case of Artifact, this world was one of the latter category. Okay, it started out as I was describing earlier. It started out as, what if? Here's a what if scenario for how our relationship with AIs might change in the future, and then so it's making maps. Where are the bigs located? Where do they get their resources? It's that kind of a project, and then the storytelling then falls out of that. And so so this is one of those where once you lay down the general parameters of the world, it's possible to imagine a whole lot of different story arcs that might unfold in that world.
Yeah, this is some of the art, kind of the early explorations. Greg and Rebecca, you guys probably recognize these from very early on. But I think like we had also, part of the goal was to create this world where people could contribute little pieces, like to the Encyclopedia Humanica. Like it wasn't intimidating to people who really loved the world and wanted to play a role in it and wanted to participate in it. We have some people who are D&D masters on the team. Like we have all that kind of DNA in our blood. And so we really like the idea that people could, come into this world and be able to contribute to it and be advocates for it, but contribute it in a high quality way that then like sort of rewarded them and made them feel like they were part of the narrative. And that's kind of what you're looking at here is like we support multimedia drops, right? So some of these come in the form of like field notes from somebody who is out there, you know, in the world, trying to scavenge or trying to gather resources and try to figure out what's going on with the bigs. In the upper right-hand corner is one of the sketches from Weta about what maybe the inside of one of the bigs actually looks like. And, you know, on the left there is an entry into the Encyclopedia Humanica with sort of like scrolling notes in the margin from somebody, right? And part of this whole experience is that kind of forensic bringing together of the community to solve it and then sort of rise and create a culture around it and an identity and create their own sort of AIs within their files.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, Rebecca, because that's actually a classic example of what I was trying to articulate before, is that typically a dungeon master starts by drawing a map and creating a world, and then later the stories fill in, you know, based partly on what the dungeon master wants to see happen, but also largely based on decisions that are made by the players.
You know, we have another great storyteller in our midst, Joe Lubin. As long as we've been working together, you've been telling some interesting stories about your vision for the future of AI as well. And I'm just curious if that, you know, shared interest is what drew you to this project.
Not really, though. I am very interested if there's an organizational meetup of the decentralized augmented human clan, because I'd like to participate on that team if that's possible. I was drawn to this project quite early, and I was drawn to I think the user generated content aspects of it, and I was heavily drawn to the fact that Neil would be participating and potentially bringing some ideas, intellectual property, worlds, etc. As Rebecca articulates really well, often there is greatness in the entertainment industry, and there's some serious structural faults in the entertainment industry. And I think of the entertainment industry as a microcosm in its architecture of society in general, and essentially the way society has been structured for millennia is that authorities somehow come by their authority, and they grant trust and authority to third parties, to trusted third parties, and the third parties figure out exactly who owns what. They maintain ledgers of who owns what and who has what responsibilities, and that has been great for building a civilization. It hasn't been great for 99% of the builders of that civilization. And if we look at the entertainment industry, we have for hundreds of years, or at least over 100 years, we've had lawyers imbue trust and authority in other lawyers, and lawyers maintain the scrolls that sort of dictate or memorialize who owns what and who has what rights to what value flows. And it has been great for creating some incredible art in different modalities. It hasn't been great for all the builders, many of the builders of that art, and even for many of the consumers of that art, where you can have your world that you have bought into and love rug pulled from you if some big studio ends up choosing a fork of a cannon or something like that. And so the Lamina project is all about creating an intellectual property framework that professionals can use, that hobbyists, that consumers can use, and we can all essentially play on the same level playing field and inspire each other and create. We're all users, and we can all create user-generated content. So again, I'm on team decentralized augmented humanity, and I'm interested in participating in creating the story. One other piece that I think is really important. Neil painted a world, called it the metaverse, and I'm not sure that the metaverse has a fourth wall. In some ways, it probably does, and I think that it's composed of virtual reality and augmented reality, and you don't really know when they're bleeding into one another as the technology gets more sophisticated. I could be painting visual objects into a physical world on my lenses, or I could be painting a physical world in great detail into a virtual world and painting those same virtual objects into it. And so I think, and I mentioned this once in one of our calls, I really want to see this constructed universe, this constructed set of narrative arcs and timelines. I really want to see it bleed over into the real world where we don't actually need to respect the boundaries politically, economically, etc. And so if we can, if I'm invited to this meetup of decentralized augmented humans, maybe we can actually organize in some virtual space and bring it to the rest of the world.
You're here.
Eric and I have so many stories, Joe, about town halls that Joe has given. I think my very first town hall, Joe talked about how we were gonna how would we live with AI and there would be cyborgs in the future. And it was my very first town hall working at Consensus. And I was like, this company is wild. I love it. And it was my very first experience. So glad we're still on that thread.
Yeah. So we're coming after the bigs. No, we're not. We're going to live
We're gonna live harmoniously.
hybrid harmony.
So for the
More
Weta
bigs, the
team,
better.
yeah, for the Weta
Everyone should
team,
be big.
everyone. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice sentiment.
True, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, that's the opportunity of the virtual world, right? Everyone can be big.
Yeah.
So this was like a very you mentioned how this was like a very open for the Weta team, like very open development process. Can you just talk a little bit more about like when you have this like open community driven world, does that change your process? Do you have new tools and workflows? Like talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, I think in general, this is probably, well, in terms of my involvement, it's probably my first time working on a project that had such a large co-creation potential. It's not usual for us to do that. So whilst I think we pursued our usual world building methodologies for this project in order to give it a really strong foundation, the thing that excites us, I think, is where it goes from here. Because it's really not static, it's dynamic in so many ways. And the places that our fandom or participants, players, however you want to describe them, can take this work is really new, uncharted territory when it comes to our role as world builders. And I'm kind of excited personally to see how that evolves. And where as well the Lamina1 and with Lore team actually take what we've created and spin a tale with that for the audience and drop little hints and create a narrative that they can start really investing in and develop their own offshoot for. That's a really exciting side of it, and it's, for me, quite unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual. Usually, even in projects where there might not be a very finished script, like which happens every now and then, you're still going to spend this quite extended period of time, maybe 6 months to a year, 2 years or more, developing as much of this world as possible, and then you're going to show it. But in this case, it's much faster than that, and the whole nature of the medium is more exploratory. So the exciting part for us is that we're just going to put the content out there. We could spend, as Tolkien did, you could spend half of your life painting the world, but we don't get the chance here. There's so much territory. We're going to put the big signposts out, the big visual important things. Neil's got these big concepts that really matter, but there's so much space in between that we would spend a lifetime filling it in. And so that's, I think, almost the premise, right? Is we're gonna move forward, knowing that there's all this other territory for other people to come in and explore and to help define themselves. But they'll have these great anchor points that Neil's given us, and hopefully some inspiration from what we've created as well.
Yeah, and we don't typically work alongside the IP author in the way that we have been. Being able to get a little bit of text from Neil that then we can respond to with a sketch, or in Will's case, some iconography, some graphics. Does this feel right to you, Neil? And then Neil can literally come back almost directly and be like, yeah, this is heading in a direction that feels right for the work, and have you considered this and this? And we don't get that luxury very often.
Yeah.
It's a real privilege.
It's the most fun when that situation is happening, and hopefully that's what we can recreate for the audience. If they are contributing and they get inspiration not only from their fellow contributors, but from us and from Neil and from the team there, that they're seeing what really works and resonates, and that content will float to the top and so on. You know,
I mean, we did look at it in terms of like kind of like phases, because we wanted to give ourselves space to see what the community was responding to and have that sort of back and forth. But obviously would all love to see it, you know, continue to evolve into like more and more immersive territory. Joe, to your point about these worlds all starting to bleed, like we've been there, we've all seen that with Magic Leap and like wanted to go there. The tech wasn't quite ready yet, but eventually I think we will get there where those things sort of bleed and the barriers dissolve between those worlds. So we kind of designed it like in phases to be attainable by the masses at first. Like, how can we get everybody to just play in ways that they're used to playing on the greatest sort of like platform, right? Which is like web, right? Like we can get people there really easily, and then it can spin off into, you know, something more persistent, 3D worlds, or maybe even location-based or merchandising, or there's all different ways that we expect the fan base to kind of help guide us and what they find compelling.
I wonder if you have any like kind of specific prompts or like inspiration for, you know, these community members that you're going to be co-creating with to kind of get started. I mean, obviously they can see what works and build from there, but I mean, starting from zero, I think it could be a bit daunting. Any tips on how people can start to engage?
I mean, it sounds daunting, but I will tell you, we've already started to get fan fiction, which is like,
Wow, really?
pretty amazing. Like pretty exciting. Casey was just telling me that before the call, that people are starting to play. But I think like part of that comes down to sort of the journey, like the way that you get into it. So what we've done is lay out a bunch of different forms of like lore. If you're a visual person, you can start to engage in that way and look at the imagery and sort of pull things from that. But what that first sort of action you'll take on November 11th is you'll be able to go and get your artifact. And you were kind of one of these people that was chosen by discovery, this sort of like serendipitous discovery, or maybe something even bigger that plans in it for you. But it starts with this process of decryption of the artifact, and that gets you right into the world, and then understanding these files and subcultures that have started to sort of rise up against it. So we have a questing program, I think, you know, Will talked about this too, that's built right into the Spaces platform that will help us kind of nudge people along. But the goal is to get people to interact, you know, frequently, and people have different styles, right? Like some people will check in once a week. Some people will obsessively kind of decrypt and do this kind of forensic study of what other clues there are in various different parts of the creative work. And then eventually we'll evolve towards quests that are more AI co-creation driven, where we kind of put the rails on for fans, but we give them sort of the guideposts to start to play.
Neil, is there any art, like, is there any specific fan art you're excited to see? Like, what would you want? What's your dream?
If
If you could force everyone to do it, yeah.
The whole point is to not do that, right?
I know.
The point is to be surprised. But I'll say that, you know, sort of going back to some of the themes Joe was touching on, the general shape of entertainment has been that certain entities like big studios will aggregate a huge amount of money and power, and they'll delegate that to directors, who can then go into a Weta workshop and say, I have been in, I have $200 million, or whatever. Here's what I want to see. Here's what I want you guys to do for me, and so it's all in the service of one particular director who's got a vision, and who has this sort of almost dictatorial power to say exactly how that is going to be realized on the screen. And that can produce great things, and it has obviously produced great things in some of the other projects that Weta Workshop and other creative people have worked on. But it doesn't have to be that way. We've got maybe new ways of creating worlds now that grow out of a more decentralized concept of how money is going to flow and who's going to be empowered to create things. So that's part of the theme of the story that's being told here in the fictional artifact world, but it's also something that we're actually trying to turn into a real process with the team that we've put together here.
Rebecca, if I was at a meeting, a local meeting of the decentralized Augies, and we were hatching a plot to build an interface to enable us to communicate with one another, to make decisions on the consensus formation chips in our brain, and to interface with some of the bigs and to challenge them to bond with us in different ways, to write some stories around what is possible. How would we go about registering some of that user-generated intellectual property in a smart contract, and how would we be compensated? How would value flow through licensing in that universe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a few great partners in the ecosystem too that are kind of helping us get IP on chain and making sure the rails are there. One of the questions was like, what is actually on chain? How are we driving transactions, and how do people, communicate in terms of what's actually on chain? And I don't want to give away too much of the game, but like that initial mint on November 11th is your first sort of transaction on chain, right? And you'll use that thing, which is, I mean, some might call it an NFT, we call it an artifact. You're going to use it to then like decrypt the messages that are on there. And within there are traits that aren't on chain. Like there's some sort of like, we're still evaluating what exactly needs to be on chain, but then you'll make some critical choices, and that will result in a new NFT and sort of sorting into kind of a tribe. And that tribe might be your Augies, right? And then those files, those tribes that form, and there are a few at the start, but Neil has imagined very, very many, right? And the idea is that the world itself will start to produce some tribes and people that come together naturally to build these types of things. But you can communicate in that way, and you can and start to I think you can even train your own sort of file AI. So you can interact directly kind of with the bigs. And there's all sorts of little plot twists that'll be thrown in there to like make sure we keep it interesting. And then within Spaces in the media platform itself on the whole, of course, any related transactions to the IP will be recorded on chain. And I think like as we're introducing some of the AI co-creation processes, that will all be on chain. There will be economics and royalties tied to those transactions on chain, tied to derivative transactions on chain. And we're still like working through the nitty-gritty details of this, but the ultimate goal is to run a reputation system that then like tracks quality engagement and advocacy and transactions, and then rewards participants in a variety of ways. But there's going to be a lot of space carved out for, like, we're going to start off that world, but we expect there to be tribes that organize. And I think it'd be awesome if we can get the Linea community excited about actually like,
yeah, for sure,
some real backing.
Ultimately, who's in control of this world? Is it the bigs? Is it some humans behind the project. Will it be possible to revolt and rewrite the system? Take
Interested.
over?
Look at Neil. I can see you, Neil. You're licking your chops. Go ahead. The outcome has not been determined. I remember, Joe, that was one of your first. That was one of your first questions. Have the centralized AI win, and we were like, no.
Oh,
Stay
history has
tuned.
yet to be written.
There's
Ooh.
plenty of room for rebellion, for sure. But we got to get people into the world and sort of like with a basic understanding first, right? And so that process will happen through decryption, and then the way they get introduced into this world and gathering resources and whatnot, they'll learn.
You don't
harvest.
actually have to be a cryptanalyst to play the game.
No,
So when we say it's through decryption, it's pretend.
it's yeah.
You can decrypt
It's very
things through
decryption.
an interpretive dance move.
Yeah, it's very accessible.
Left, right, up, down, A, B. Yeah,
Exactly.
But what's fun about it is like if there are serious, and I hope there are like serious cryptographers who are playing around in this world, they can sort of design things and make mini games and like it's designed for that, right? For people to kind of to spin off in certain directions.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a question here about how Joe plans to contribute to the narrative, but I feel like you've maybe already tipped your hand there a little bit.
Yeah.
Asked and answered.
Not been answered yet, but still thinking it through.
Yeah,
Well, we're just about at time here. Oh, go ahead, Neil.
No. Please go ahead.
Well, this was the last question about what we're leaving out. So go ahead and finish that thought.
Oh, just I hadn't thought about augmented people yet, because in general in this world, technology has been rolled back a little bit. But
You think so?
But why not? Yeah, why? You know, maybe there are people who've figured out how to do that. So
Wash the human
Maybe-
spirit? I doubt it.
yeah. Okay.
Maybe the artifact can go on your brain. Maybe it's
Yeah.
like a piece of tech that you can actually incorporate in your body.
Mhm.
I do want to say something before we sign off, which is that, you know, we are obviously migrating over to Linea. Like that was a choice that we made. And I just want to say that, you know, the reason for that is that, you know, Neil and I went to see Joe at ETH Denver. And I think we knew right after that meeting that we had found the right partner for the long haul for this. Not only did he really understand the mission and the challenges of both like where we currently were with our own token, with our own kind of like building process, and where we wanted to go and kind of how we needed to get there, and shared our values there. So, you know, we really wanted to change media, and we want to return story and culture to the people versus the gatekeepers alongside the internet, which is something Joe has talked about a lot, right? Returning the internet sort of to the people, the operating system for the internet. And I think I just want to say that we were really excited to find a way into Ethereum and sort of because the scale matters, like the scale in the community and the breadth and depth of the ecosystem is critical for us to prove out that we can actually do this thing. So in the short time we've been here, the ecosystem is really engaged and connected with the mission. And so we're finding very quickly all the parts and pieces we need to break new ground. And that's why we came, and we're really excited to be here. So
Equally
Glad
We're
excited.
to
so
have
excited
you.
to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thanks for today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for the whole crew for joining all over the world.
Thanks, everyone.
This is a lot
Go
of fun.
humans.
Go
Yeah.
humans.
Augies forever.
Exactly.
That should be a new file.
Yeah. it should.
Okay.
Ooh,
I
it
know,
should be a new file.
The Augies.
Yeah, I can see the wheels turning already in Wellington. Yeah.
So you're the
Thank you
you're
guys so much.
Christian's already got an augmented horse, so
There you go.
we can carry on from there.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
That was
Wow.
amazing.
That was our best.
one of the One of my favorite days of consensus. I can tell you that much. That's awesome.
So good.
So I think we've got some dates we need to share before we wrap up. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. So tomorrow, the October 31st, happy Halloween. It's also Neil Stevenson's birthday. So happy birthday to Neil. We didn't say that earlier. You can get access to spaces. So what Will showed us as a demo beforehand, that is what you will get to see tomorrow on Friday, Halloween. So you can access spaces, and then from the 31st through November 10th, they're going to be dropping things on the space. So behind the scenes information, they're going to be dropping little hints about the story, just like they had that document about the spike where you have to you're trying to decrypt the world. Those little nuggets will be shared over the next 10 or so days. And then on November 10th, the artifact game officially begins. So you'll be able
Awesome.
to go in, mint your NFT, and then that starts you off on your journey.
So excited. I got to
I know.
set aside some time. It's so busy in Linear World. I got to set aside some time to do this and play this and get
This is
involved.
part of our job. This is
Yeah, that's
and the
the way to look at it.
and the cool thing about it too is that I think Neil's going to be dropping different chapters. So I think you can read almost like new chapter of a book, and say with the Weta team, right sharing the design. So I think new things will be happening on the spaces either daily or weekly. So there's just going to be nuggets that you can follow along that will help you decrypt the story. So it's not all going to be available at once, which will be really fun. To just have something fun to do in crypto land. That's not refreshing your wallet,
Right. Awesome. I look forward to maybe checking in on some future episodes as well on our progress and on everyone
Yes.
else's progress. Should be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Susie, for taking the time to set this up. This was actually quite a lot of coordination to get all those folks in one place at one time, to have that amazing conversation, and also to Joe behind the scenes and Nicole as well, and the rest of the team. Tons of work to pull this off. I'm really excited to see where it goes. Excited is our catchphrase, as we know.
Excited is our word for our podcast.
Right.
We should rename it something exciting.
Yeah, right. It's getting there. It's uncontainable, just uncontainable.
Yeah.
The podcast, uncontainable excitement.
And let's thank you to Weta, the Weta team. They're all the way in New Zealand. So thank you. Thank you to Neil for joining. Thank you to Rebecca. She's such a boss. She's so inspiring. Thank you to Casey. And of course, our fearless leader, my captain, Joe Lubin, for joining. And thank you all for being here and listening.
Indeed. Thank you all. Everyone have a happy Halloween. Have a good weekend. Know that we have I have multiple live
Announcements
streams planned next week. So
Yeah.
for those who may be stressing for one reason or another in Linear Land, more to come next week. We'll be talking to you much more in the coming days. So go touch grass, and we will see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.